Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and a big thank you goes out to our presenting sponsor, tennisballs.com. We appreciate them so much for investing in the Parenting Aces radio show and investing in junior and college tennis. If you haven't had a chance to check them out yet, please do. It's 10SBALLS tennisballs.com. So please check them out for all the latest news on professional tennis, both in the U.S. and globally. They do report a little bit on junior tennis, a little bit on college tennis, but their focus is mostly on the professional game, but they do some great stories. So again, thank you, tennisballs.com, for sponsoring us. For today, we have a guest that I have been trying to get on the show for a little while now, and I'm so excited he finally has the time to chat with us. Clay Thompson played college tennis for UCLA for 4 years, but before that, he was a top junior, top recruit, and has since gone on to play professionally with some hiccups in the mix, but he has got such a great story, and Clay is one of these guys. I met him when he was playing at UCLA, and we've had opportunities to chat on numerous occasions, and the more I've gotten to talk to him, the better I've gotten to know him, the more I have wanted him to share his story with my Parenting Aces community. So I'm just thrilled that he had the time to be with us today. It's early for him. Clay's on the West Coast, but we so appreciate him taking time to be with us. So without any further delay, let me get Clay on the air and we will get going. Clay, good morning. Thank you for joining us, and I'm so excited you're here.
Good morning to you. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I really appreciate what you do for all fans and your audience members that listen in. So, it's all about supporting the community of tennis, and I'm all about that. So thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. So I gave a little bit of background on you. You grew up in the LA area. You went to high school in LA. You went to college in LA. But you're a pretty worldly guy. So do you want to just start off by talking a little bit about your junior tennis journey, how you got started playing, and what your family's relationship to your tennis has been?
Yeah, my dad is the one that originally kind of got me into playing tennis. He was a recreational player, and he picked it up in his 30s. He kind of fell in love with the game like a lot of people do. And he's the one that kind of, got me, into the game and motivated to play, and, kind of taught me the fun behind it. So he kind of, got me playing when I was, around 4, 5, 6, that age, just, casually. And one thing led to another. And, before you know it, we were traveling up and down the coast of Southern California and, all over the nation to play these junior tournaments, and kind of just part of that whole circus. And, I really enjoyed that time. It's quite a commitment for kid and parents and, everyone involved with the sport at that age to clear your weekends and just kind of, go spend your days at these tournaments. And, they can, you play 2 matches a day, 2 singles, 1 doubles, and, you can really end up spending you end up looking where your weekend went, and you're kind of like, okay. So, that it's really a cool thing, because it gives you so much responsibility as a kid, and it really gives you kind of a sense of, competitiveness and a sense of, just really duty at that age. But at the same time, it is such a commitment that, it can definitely be a burden on both the kids and the players. But, as long as you kind of take it in stride and really enjoy what you're doing, and, it's a really cool opportunity. So, I didn't, play any of the ITF tournaments necessarily. I played the local ones, Carson, Easter Bowl, Claremont, the grade 4, but I didn't do too much, international traveling, because I wanted to stay in, a private high school, and, really, education was a huge value for me. So I didn't really want to sacrifice that in order to kind of do this thing where you go on the road. and basically live the professional lifestyles, since you're like 13, 14, which is what a lot of the kids are doing nowadays. And, if you feel like you're ready for it and mature enough to do it at that age, I'm all for it, like go for it. But for me, I didn't feel like I was quite, ready for that grind, and I did want to stay with my friends and my family and not really give that up at that age. So I decided to, rather play the local, Southern California tournaments, national opens, level 1 through 3s kind of, and then, just kind of, let my path be a little bit more natural and organic, which eventually led me to, being, number 3 recruit in the nation and going to UCLA and playing under Billy Martin, which was another just incredible experience, really, to be a part of that institution and a part of college tennis, which I think is such a great sport, such a great community, in such an individual sport, to kind of create that team atmosphere and that camaraderie, which is just important to the game and something that I feel kind of, is lacking a little bit on the junior and pro circuit.
For sure. At what point did you know you wanted to play college tennis?
I'm not sure if it was ever I want to play college tennis thing, more than it was just like I really fell in love with the game, and I wanted to keep playing the game, and I had these dreams of going professional, and I had these dreams of playing all these tournaments or whatever, and it just kind of seemed like college was the natural progression of things. When I was in 8th and 9th grade and starting, that's kind of when I started to take tennis really seriously. 14 and under probably is that's when you kind of start to say, okay, we're going to travel to these tournaments, I'm going to play this schedule, kind of laid it out, as professionally as I could, for a junior. And at that point, I kind of, I was thinking, okay, do I want to go pro? I didn't really have that much experience in college tennis at that age, and obviously I was doing pretty well in the juniors at that point, so I did want to keep things going. And, some of my coaches at the time were like, okay, let's, maybe look into going to school for, a semester, a year, a season, kind of like a short thing, and then go out on the tour after that. And, when you're 14, you're, wide-eyed and, ready to take on the world. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. It's, a season of college tennis and then pro tennis. Like, that's the dream right there. And, I think when I got a little bit older, probably 15, 10th grade, almost into 11th grade, I was like, okay, obviously I still really love tennis and I want to keep competing, and pro tennis is still definitely in my realm of possibility, but, there's so much out there that, I could be missing out on if I decide to take that role. So, I kind of made the decision that I wanted to stay in high school, kind of finish that whole thing out with my friends, graduate with my class, which was really important to me. And then, when I decided that I wanted to not leave high school early, I was like, well, let's look at, a 4-year college. Let's look at, one of these institutions that will kind of, raise me as an athlete, but also, as an academic, and give me the necessary life experiences that, I want to get out of that. So, it kind of seemed natural. I took, couple of recruiting visits, Georgia, Duke, UCLA, kind of looking at those schools a lot, Stanford, and it kind of just seemed natural to me because I was, so committed to tennis that, to stay in LA and kind of keep my coaching base and my training base that I already had here, and, really not have to go through that, that transition, that adapting period that I would have had to gone through if I had gone to somewhere like Duke, gone across the country, had to take, it's tough. I mean, to go right into something like that, and also, try and keep your body in elite shape and, get used to, new classes. So, that whole adaptation period kind of, we decided would be, possibly a little off-putting. So we just decided to stay in LA, and I couldn't be happier with my choice.
How involved were your parents in that decision to go the college route, stay in Los Angeles, play at UCLA? How involved were your junior coaches in that decision?
Very involved, all of them, and I think that's very important, for a player is, it's an individual sport. You have to make your own decisions for sure, but, your support team really does everything, that's like, it's just such an integral part. I mean, you see all these pros talking about it now, Djokovic, Murray, all those guys, but it's the same thing as a junior tennis player. I mean, you have to, you're the CEO, you have to make your own decisions, but you have a board, an advisory of people that are a lot wiser than you most of the time. So you got to be able to, take their advice. And, they definitely cautioned me against that transition period that I was talking about. And they said, if you do want to be a pro, to stay, in this community might be really good for you. And so I took that advice to heart. And, my coach while I was at UCLA, not Billy or Grant, but, kind of my individual coach that had been coaching me throughout high school, stayed with me and would come to all my matches. And, that's really cool. And to kind of keep those relationships going that you've made through tennis. And just to be an LA guy playing in LA. I mean, I was able to have a lot of, friends, family, different coaches throughout the years, trainers, that kind of thing, just, able to come to my matches and keep supporting me, which was really great because, it is easy, as any kid can tell you, it's easy to, get into college and then, go there and kind of lose your way a little bit and maybe wake up after 2 or 3 years and you're kind of like, oh, well, what happened? And, that's great. But, I think it does help if you can, just kind of make things a little bit easier on you because it's such a big transition to go from high school to college. And, it's a big time in your life. So to make the transition as smooth as possible was really important. And I think that a huge reason why I did have the college success that I had, both academically and on the court.
To look at you, your physical being, you present as the prototypical tennis player. You're tall, you're muscular, but you're lean. Were you always that build, or was there ever a point coming up through the juniors or maybe early in college where you didn't have those advantages at your disposal? Or were there any other kind of pitfalls that you ran up against? And I'm asking because, especially for boys, most boys tend to go through a period of time where, they haven't hit puberty yet. Maybe they're coming up against the bigger guys and, their prepubescent physicality isn't competitive with the bigger, older guys. Was that ever an issue for you, or were you always the tall, strong one?
No, I definitely went through a very awkward phase. I hit my growth spurt, I guess, when I was like 12, 13, like in elementary school from first to fifth grade. I was I remember in fifth grade I was 5'1". So you figure, that's pretty tall, but it's not massive yet, really. And obviously I was extremely skinny and kind of uncoordinated and just weird at that age, and shy, all the above. And I probably hit my growth spurt in towards the end of sixth grade, seventh grade, which would probably be about 12, 13. And I remember when I was going through that, my legs were very wobbly, my knees would sometimes give out, that kind of thing. And, I think that was a really important time for me when I was kind of okay, I'm extremely uncomfortable in this growing body right now. Obviously I want to make it an athletic body, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And, to kind of not rush things at that age, to kind of, understand that, I was going through this growth spurt, and, hopefully we'd be able to make, a well-oiled machine down the road. But, if you really hit it too hard at that age, or, are playing tournaments nonstop, you don't give yourself a chance to really adapt to your body, and you're kind of just, punishing it day after day after day, because tennis is brutal. I mean, playing, 2 hours a day, even on just concrete surface every single day. I mean, it's not the greatest thing you could ever do for your body. So you have to kind of understand that and, structure your life in a way that can, promote, some sort of well-being with that body. You have to be kind of smart about it. So I think during that time, I practiced a little bit less. I wasn't doing any weights or anything at that age. My mom was a practicing chiropractor at that point in my life. So she, whenever I would allow her to, would get me up on the table and kind of, stretch me out, make sure everything was in alignment. So that definitely helped. But, throughout my entire career, I've really been injured, once, and that was, a very minor back thing at UCLA. And, that was a great experience for me because it kind of put things in perspective. But before that, I mean, even though I wasn't extremely conscious about it, I understood, the value of, of pacing yourself, of not overworking yourself, of, kind of making a schedule that, like I said before, allows you to, build muscle, but also not overdo things. And, in this day and age, when you just saw, Federer at 35 years old win his another Grand Slam title, it's so important to put that value on your body and that longevity, because tennis is a lifelong sport, and the goal is to be playing when you're 70, 80. I mean, hopefully after a successful career, and in order to do that, you need to be smart about these things. So I think like I said, that's definitely a huge proponent to my success, is knowing how to pace yourself and kind of go through those awkward stages. But,
Right.
I didn't really do any serious weight sessions or any, serious training until I got to be about 17, 18, and really felt like I was in control of myself. And, obviously still had pretty good success. Maybe, did I miss out on, I don't know, being a little bit more ripped when I was, 18, or, being a little bit faster when I was a freshman in college, maybe. But today, to be able to still, be playing tennis at the highest level and be totally injury free, I think that's definitely well worth it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what's going on today. You graduated from UCLA 2 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, 2014.
Almost 3 years ago? 2014. Yeah, almost 3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
And you went out on the tour, and then all of a sudden you weren't on the tour anymore. So can you talk a little bit about what you've been doing since graduation, and maybe talk a little bit about the degree that you earned from UCLA, and what you've been doing this last 2.5 years?
Yeah, like I said, pro tennis has always definitely been something that I wanted to pursue, even though I took a little bit more of a well-rounded path. I didn't put all my eggs in the basket. So as soon as I graduated, I was number 1 in the country my senior year, ended up being number 2 behind Marcos Giron. And, I was like, okay, I got my degree, everything's cool, it's time to, give this a shot. And I spent the first 6 months right after graduation kind of, doing a little, what I like to call trial period. How does the pro tour work? What exactly am I going to have to put into this? What can I expect to get back? And, I got some decent sponsorship money out of school because I did do well in college. So I was able to basically fund myself for that trial period for 6 months. So I played, I got the pleasure of playing the Newport Hall of Fame tournament on grass, which was one of the best experiences in my life so far. Then I played, a pretty 3 or 4 challengers in a row. And then I went down to some futures, ended the year playing in, Mexico in these 2 futures down there in Merida. And so then I came back, I believe it was second week in December. And, I kind of just put everything in perspective. I was like, this is how much I spent. This is, how much time I committed to everything. This is, what I felt I did right. This is what I felt I did wrong. And I kind of spent the next 3 months from, January to March creating a really well thought out business plan, and just, everything that goes with that. And so once I was kind of happy with, my creation of that, and kind of, I had this vision for how I would go forward, I, started shopping the plan around to different investors, different sponsors, companies, and, got some good feedback. Definitely got turned away by a few people, but also a lot of people welcomed it with open arms because, there are a lot of tennis fans out there, and, this American tennis thing, this lack of a real driving force behind American tennis, it motivates a lot of people. So, I got some good responses, and I was able to kind of, muster up a good chunk of money to play for, basically a year. It ended up being 14 months. We started in June of 2015, and then that, at that point I was traveling with my longtime coach, who I had mentioned earlier, was supporting me at UCLA, and we, started at a future in Mexico, a 10K, as rough as you can get, and won it, and just kind of had a great summer together. We played probably 3 or 4 more futures, and then go ahead.
I was going to say, so you went to this 10K in Mexico, you won it. Just so my listeners understand, a 10K tournament means that's the total prize money available to all the players. So as the winner, what did your check look like? It wasn't $10,000.
No, it was definitely not $10,000. I think it was $1,392. So, definitely not big money, but they gave me a big check, and, me and my coach were kind of celebrating and, joking around. We're like holding this big check for $1,300, and we're like, yeah, first pro title, we did it. And it was, there's no money in that level of tennis, really. You can go play a prize money tournament around your home and probably make more than that. But, it's cool to say that you've won a professional tennis tournament, and, it's an experience. And, to go down there with the goal of winning it and to win it. And a lot of times these tournaments, they are not glorious, that's for sure, not glamorous. They got some ball kids that have no idea what they're doing, or are just volunteers from, somewhere. They have umpires who, do the best they can, but to be one umpire with, these men who are crushing the ball and, ready to scream at you on a moment's notice if they think you messed up. It's not an easy job, a very thankless job. So, if there's any umpires right now listening, I appreciate what you do. It's a tough job. And then, the balls, they change balls at like 13 or 11 and 13 games. So, it's just like a junior tennis tournament, basically. So, all you parents that take your kids to level 5, designateds or whatever they are, you can kind of picture that on the pro scene, and with people that are trying to, that are really trying to get that money and those points. It's super competitive. So anyway.
And what was your ranking at that point?
Well, I came out of school ranked like 2,000, I think, because I had played some tournaments. Like I got a wild card to, Dallas Challenger my senior year, ended up losing to Steve Johnson 7-5 in the third. I got a wild card to Indian Wells, lost to Bobby Reynolds 7-6, 7-6. So, I had these kind of opportunities, but I didn't really, take any of them, or I didn't really, capture any of them to really boost my ranking before I got out of school. So, I left school about 2000 in the world, and obviously I did have a good college career, so there's some people, that were believing in me, but at the same time it was kind of like, well, you were number one in college, but now you got to start from the bottom and rise back up. And, again, like I think tennis is a great system. I think it really rewards those who are independent and, ambitious enough to really chase their dreams and go after them. But at the same time, it doesn't provide any security for them. Like, I couldn't get out of school and sign with an organization that would, allow me to develop my game through a 2 or 3 year span, which is, really what you need. For me at UCLA, it was like, I was a good player my freshman, sophomore, junior year. I hovered around like 30 in the country, got to the, semis, finals of NCAAs. But, I really, figured everything out my senior year. And that was, 3 years after my initial, time at UCLA. So if you kind of, figure that maybe on a little bit shortened scale, because you're a little bit more mature when you leave school. So, let's talk about maybe 1.5 to 3 year scale. That time is really important, to that time of development. You see it in every other sport. They sign players to a contract, 3-year deal, 4-year deal, whatever it is, rookie 2-year deal. So, and that's basically an organization saying, we believe in you. We're going to give you the necessary funds, necessary resources to really, give yourself a chance to be an elite athlete because we believe in you. With tennis, there is none of that. There is just, you're on your own, good luck. And because all your money comes from endorsements and sponsorships, when you go through a hot period, you're crushing it. You're like, I'm making money, I'm feeling good, everyone loves me, it's awesome. When you go through a cold period, you think the world's about to end. I have no money, and no one thinks I'm any good, I don't have any chance, any way to get to the next tournament. It can really get, depressing. So I kind of saw that and, put together this deal that I was talking about, and, traveled with my coach from, June to November, won that futures tournament, played a lot of other tournaments, did well. I was kind of on like a 2 to 3 tournament a month schedule. And then, capped my year off with that performance in Champaign, which was probably the best tournament of my life so far, which is where I made the semifinals of that challenger in Champaign, beat 2 basically top 100 guys. They were 101 and 109 at the time. So, that was really great. And, kind of called 2015 a year after those 6 months. And I had risen from 2000 in the world to, I think I was about 440 at the end of that year. So I was just really happy with my progress. And, I was having a great time. And, I got invited to all these great training camps over the off season with the USTA and Carson, and just it really, felt like I was, breaking, the barrier of professional tennis and, giving myself a chance to play with the best guys. I mean, I was training with, Steve Johnson, Taylor Fritz, Donaldson, TFO, all those guys. And, for me, to be in that situation, after everything that I've been through, it was really cool for me. It was, such a great experience. And then, so we started off 2016, and that would be my first kind of full total year on tour. Well, I would hope, going into it. And started off, played really well in the USC Futures, got to the semifinals there, and kind of was, really on a great path. And then, kind of the reality of things started to set in. It was okay, I'm playing really well, but, how do we keep it going? My coach at the time was the one that I was traveling with last year. It was really expensive to keep him around. And, even though I put together this deal, I was kind of well, maybe it would be best to, save a little money here and kind of, maybe make a little bit more wise financial decisions than, paying this guy X amount of money for, a week, which was, it's a sizable amount of money to get a 30-year-old, 40-year-old man to travel with you. I mean, he's got a family, so he has to support them. I mean, it's a big expense. So, I kind of decided to go with some more free coaching from the USTA and kind of just, kind of try and figure it out myself. And I think, I went through just a lot of close matches. I went to the Dallas Challenger, lost to Ernesto Escobedo, in a 6-4, 7-6, and then, kind of just had these really close matches that didn't quite fall my way. And, did a trip to the, Israel kind of area and, played 3 tournaments there, lost 2 7-6 in the third. So just really just kind of, good matches, but just kind of unfortunate, endings for me. And I remember coming back from that trip and I was kind of okay, I'm a little out of sorts. I haven't really gone through this period of losing since I've been on tour. I've really kind of been cruising and playing really well. So, and that happens. You go through hot streaks, you go through cold streaks. And unfortunately, this cold streak kind of, lasted a while, and I didn't really know how to get out of it. I was still obviously really enjoying myself, but it was just kind of well, how do I get to this next level? I've gotten to about 400 in the world. How do I get to, 300, 200 and keep going? And, just, kind of lost my way a little bit and was playing tournament after tournament after tournament and just really getting into that grind. And, I kind of realized I did this, 6-week trip to Asia, which was an amazing trip, went all over the place. But as far as, I was really having, a great time. But as far as the tennis goes, I was just I was kind of uninspired. I didn't really have an answer for, how I was going to break through. I kind of just got stuck. And, that kind of 300-ish range is where I see a lot of, my comrades get stuck. A lot of people that are great players, they kind of just stall out in that area. So I kind of was like, okay, I don't want to just keep pushing myself into the ground. So I, kind of took a step back, and I was like, what can I do to remedy this? And, hired Rick Estavilliers as a coach, who is the volunteer assistant at UCLA. And we traveled together for the rest of the summer. This was June or July when I hired him, and we traveled together until basically the end of August. And that kind of reinvigorated things. I started playing really well again. I got to a couple of quarterfinals of Futures, made second round at Aptos Challenger, lost to Bjorn Frantangelo, and was kind of, getting back on pace basically. And then, that was the point that I realized, well, this deal I put together, it's kind of starting to run out of money. We raised about $200,000, and, I spent that in about 14, 15 months. Because that's what the tour costs basically. And, so I was like, okay, it's, that's starting to run out, and, what is going to be the next step for me? And because, I was, I had really turned things around and started to really kind of feel it again and play well. But because I had gone through that cold streak for a bit, it was one of those things where everyone was like, well, do you still have what it takes to make it? And I'm like, well, I think I do, but, and I think, you think I do. It's just a matter of, are you willing to give me the resources to prove that? And it kind of became just a point where it didn't really make sense anymore, because I didn't, I love the game, but, I can't be investing, at this point in my life, I really can't afford to invest, 50 to $100,000 of my own money into myself. Mainly because I haven't, since I've graduated from college, I've been, playing professional tennis, which hasn't, been giving me a steady, 70, 80 grand a year. It's been quite a lot less than that. So, I wasn't, it's not like I was hurting financially necessarily, but I wasn't really able to make, a large sum investment into my career either. So, it got to the point where I was like, well, it's pretty much either at this point I have to invest my own funds, or, I have to call it quits. And that was kind of a tough position for me to be in, because I had done so well throughout my entire career. I was finally, on the pro tour, really giving it a shot, where I had always dreamed I wanted to be when I was a kid. But, financially, it just didn't make sense, to be. And even if it did, even if I was, making decent money, it's like I would have been doing it in a way that, it got stale kind of. Even when I was, traveling in Asia, for example, I was really enjoying my travels, but the tennis itself was just getting really stale, and there was no way to kind of, jumpstart it and make it, I don't know if your fans have ever seen me play or listeners have ever seen me play, but, you can tell, if I'm, if I'm feeling good and I'm, happy and I'm, really in the zone, I'm an energetic guy, charismatic guy, I'm loud, it's, you can tell. And when I'm not like that, and, I feel like, things are getting stale, it's just not as fun for me. It's not as fun for those watching. And, it just kind of became, I think this doesn't really make sense anymore. So in September of, last year, I decided, okay, I think that might be it. And, I got some, really good opportunities, business opportunities and, in other ventures. And I was like, well, let's give this a shot. And, kind of stepped away from the game completely for about a month and a half. And, I had some really cool things going. It was really cool to, immerse myself into, the world of business more, because I really hadn't had time to, make investments other than my tennis, because that took up such a, a large portion of my funds and money and kind of time. So, to kind of look at other deals, look at other businesses, focus on my writing. I was a creative writing major at UCLA, so I was able to do a few projects with that. It was really cool. Like, it kind of gave me a different slice of life that I hadn't experienced before. I kind of woke up after a month and a half, and I was like, this is great, but it's just, it's not as inspiring to me as tennis was. And, playing it, just being a part of it, I really do love the sport. It's always been that way for me. So I kind of started, hitting again, just, playing here and there. And then I got, put back in touch with one of my old, friends. He never really coached me, but he was a coach in the LA area. And he was talking to me about the fact that he wants to put together this, this new tennis company, which is, basically the goal of it is to, unite the tennis community, unite the American tennis community in a way that, keeps interest from the fans, from the longtime fans, but also presents it in a new way to get kind of my generation more interested in the sport, which I think is a big thing because, growing up around LA, I was able to meet a lot of people and make a lot of friends, and they liked tennis because I was involved in it. But otherwise, if I asked any of these guys about, tennis, the new age of tennis, Isner, Query, Jack Sock, like all those guys, they would have no idea who I'm talking about. They would maybe know Federer, and if you threw in a name like, McEnroe or Borg or something like that, they'd be like, oh yeah, my parents would talk about them. That's cool. But that's kind of, how it changed, in my opinion. Like, maybe your generation, the parents of, my friends were like, oh, we love tennis. But it didn't really transfer to their kids. They kind of were like, oh, tennis is just one of those sports that, no one cares about. And, that kind of made me sad because it is such a great sport. And if I was able to bring any of those people to a tennis match, they would be like, wow, this is amazing. But because the marketing of it is so, I don't want to say poor, but just not, exciting enough to capture.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. And so, they didn't really know about it. They weren't interested in it until, something sparked them. So it had always been kind of my goal to, that's kind of why I act, the way I do on the court, is because I like to make it a little entertaining. I like to make it fun for me and for the people watching. Because that's, at the end of the day, it's sport. It's a sport. It's entertainment. That's how you should see it. And, so it's always been my, goal to get as many people involved as possible, to get the word out there for all my matches, that kind of thing. And so, this guy that I had met before, he was like, hey man, like, this is what we're trying to do. And I was like, that's exactly what I want to do with tennis. Like, I want to create a community of Americans that are really involved in the sport, and that kind of community and that, interest and that, sponsorships, marketing, all that kind of, comes together under one umbrella. So we started brainstorming about this, and it kind of became, something that was very real. And I was, we had been getting a lot of support from, ex-pros, American pros, a lot of coaches, just pretty much everyone that we dropped the idea to. And so, I kind of started working on that and just kind of hitting more and more because I was getting back involved in the tennis world, but still wasn't, totally set on making my return to pro tennis. And, now we're at the stage with the company where it's really starting to take off. And the company is called Tenacity. We have a website up. It's called tenacity.com. It's very basic right now, but it's really incredible how much it's moving along, and we're really excited for this year to really launch things, and hopefully I'll be talking about it a lot more in the future. Still definitely in infancy stages, but we've just secured a really big partnership that's going to help us kind of do exactly how we want to do it. And a big part of that we decided that we wanted to bring to the game was this kind of American Tennis Champions Fund that gave players, like I was saying earlier, the chance to develop themselves over, a 2-year span, a 3-year span, to give them the time it takes to really, make inroads on the professional tour. And, the big part of that I also feel is super important is, it's about tennis, and it's about using tennis as a platform, but it is exactly that. It's using tennis as a platform for the rest of your life, to be a professional tennis player, great. If you become number one in the world, great. But, we want to make it so while you're on your road to become number one in the world, you're also gaining the valuable skills that make, great leaders, great entrepreneurs, great business people. Whatever it is that you decide that you want to, focus your efforts in outside of the court, it's going to be this kind of development process that really aids that. So, we kind of put together this Champions Fund that, would allow. We're hoping right now to start out with about three players and a couple support, like a coach or like a manager, someone that can support you on the road. 2 of those people and 3 players is kind of our initial thought right now. And so, so for this year, it kind of just, if we're going to create this fund, what better person, to start it off than me? So that kind of totally
I agree, Clay.
re-inspired me. So,
that's awesome.
Totally re-inspired
that's where
me.
you and that's where you were when you and I connected back in October. I saw you in Malibu at the Oracle event, the collegiate event, and you were working with Tenacity and had stopped playing professionally at that point and were 100% devoted to working on this project. And then all of a sudden, I saw that you were back out on the tour, and I was so excited to see your name. And I want to just say to my listeners, if you have a chance to go out and watch Clay play, please take advantage of it. And as he described, he is so entertaining on the court. He is he's very passionate about his tennis and about providing an amazing experience for the viewers and those in attendance. So please keep an eye out for him if there are events around you that you can have a chance to watch him play. But Clay, one of the things that has impressed me about you from the first time I met you is you are a very introspective guy, and to look at you, one would not make that assumption about you. And for those of you who haven't had the chance to see Clay, he looks like your stereotypical Southern California surfer dude. He's tall and tan and, long hair, and he, and then you sit down and talk to him, and he's a poet and a philosopher and is very thoughtful about many different topics. And I feel like that has served you well in your tennis and is now continuing to serve you well as you branch out from just being a tennis player to being a tennis businessman. Can you talk a little bit about that, where your writing fits into all this, where your philosophical leanings fit into all of this, and, how the tennis marries with your creative writing?
Yeah. Tennis is, I think, one of the best platforms that I've been able to find for creating, problem solving, kind of these, individual skills, giving you really a sense of maturity at a young age. And so, tennis is such a great platform for all these things, and it really teaches you invaluable life skills. I think just the kind of the innate nature of it does that, but it also kind of breeds, maybe a little bit too much self-reliance and kind of, individuality, which is part of the greatness of it. But, I think a lot of tennis players, especially juniors that I meet, are kind of shy, very, introspective, introverts, which, I'm cool with. And I think that really, that's, a great skill that you learn from it. But at the same time, you need to learn to, how to use those skills kind of on the outside as well, how to bring that to the, to the rest of the world, because, in order to be, an entrepreneur or, just successful in life in general, you need to be able to interact with the outside world. And so tennis teaches you all these great skills that you really keep within you. And I think, a lot of players struggle with getting it out of them and into the world, and having that confidence to really, bring the skills that they've learned through tennis into the rest of their lives. And I think that's where, growing up in LA really helped me, and being around so many different, creative people, successful people, that kind of helps me bring that out. But the thing that really helped me bring it out was, the writing. I think, that because I was so shy at a young age, I was able to kind of, find my voice in my writing, definitely. And, kind of bring my, introverted thoughts that, don't really leave my body and kind of just, cross my mind when I'm playing or, in any other part of my life. I was able to bring those thoughts to life, basically, and kind of, give myself, a sense of, I guess, purpose to the rest of the world. And that's kind of what, that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing now, and kind of what I felt like I've been doing my whole professional career, is kind of, using my own, tennis talent to kind of bring, hopefully, a broader perspective to the American audience. If, one of the great examples that I like to give is, my goal, sure, to win a Grand Slam, be top 10 in the world, that's all great. But my goal really is, to entertain as many people as I can with my tennis, and to hopefully provide, a kind of role model figure for, a kid that wants to, go down the same path as I do and wants to pursue professional tennis, but doesn't know if, it makes financial sense, doesn't know if it makes, the time and commitment sense. So, for me, it's like, I want to be, kind of, a figure that demonstrates that you can, have a great high school, life with all your close friends, and then, go to college and get a great education and meet a lot of great people, and also, stay at the top of the tennis game, and then hopefully transition that into professional level as well. And just kind of, again, it's using tennis as a lifestyle. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the Champions Fund that we're working on now, is just, if you love tennis, then it teaches you enough skills that will be worth its while for sure. It's just a matter of, giving it the time and, just putting in the work to make it all come together. Because it's not something, you're not going to pick up tennis for, 5 years and get everything you can out of it. It's a lifelong sport for a reason. It teaches you, I guess I can't really say, because I played a little bit of, basketball and baseball and all those team sports when I was a kid, but I never really got too much into them. But just an individual sport like tennis, it teaches you so much. And I guess I can't compare it to a team sport because I don't know enough about it, but just the skills that it gives you, it's really great. And, it is something that you can keep learning, every single day of your life until you can't walk anymore. And, hopefully that's very late in your life. So, you can't say the same thing about a lot of other sports. So, it's, for me, it's just, I really enjoy playing it. I really enjoy the game, and I really enjoy the lessons that it gives you. And I want to kind of, spread those lessons and spread that enjoyment for the game across as many people as I can.
Some of your UCLA teammates are out on the tour with you now. Marcos Giron, as you mentioned, Matthew McDonald's out there. Jen Brady just had an amazing Australian Open.
Amazing, yeah. Shout out to Jenny for sure.
That was so fun to watch.
So it was. Yeah.
How does that play into your commitment, your enthusiasm toward playing, as opposed to being involved on the business side? When you see your teammates out there grinding away and having success, does that light a fire under you, or do you just say, yay for them, and I'm going to keep chugging along my path? Or, what impact does that have?
It definitely lights a fire under me. When I see, like Ernesto Escobedo getting to the second round of Australian Open, I used to train with him like every single day. All these guys, Kudla, Sock, all guys that I used to play back in the day. That definitely, lights a competitive fire under me, and I love to see them doing well. And then, seeing like Jenny, seeing Marco, seeing Mackie, these people that, are such great players and, didn't finish college, that kind of inspires me to, from a business standpoint, to really put together something that can help these people. So, I mean, probably don't even need my help at this point, but, you know, help them, you know, maybe to help someone like them, you know, in the future, because, you know, I know, you know, of all those names you just mentioned, you know, Marcos, Jenny, you know, all those people, you know, they've gone through a point where they've been on the tour. You know, Jenny had surgery, had like a stress fracture. Marcos had surgery on his hips. You know, they've gone through a time where they've probably felt, am I going to be able to do this? You know, is this going to be able to happen for me? And that's, you know, when you've put, you know, all this time into the sport, and, you know, you decided not to get your degree, you decided to totally pursue it. You know, Jenny, you know, grew up, you know, basically in an academy in Florida her whole life, you know. It's like, it can get really scary, I think. You know, it can get really like, well, if I did put all this effort into it, you know, and, you know, maybe I took one wrong step on the court one day and, you know, I injured myself for 4 months, and it's at such a critical time, and I don't have the resources to really give myself a long-term shot. So, you know, this may end before it even begins for me. And, you know, that really inspires me to, you know, not just get on the court and compete with those people, but to really, you know, kind of help come up with a solution that, you know, okay, you know, you got injured, you know, Derrick Rose was injured, you know, Kobe was injured, like, you know, whatever. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of great athletes that were injured at one point in their lives and then, you know, was able to get over that and, you know, kind of transcend through that. And, you know, I think if tennis doesn't give someone the opportunity to do that, or the opportunity to fail before succeeding, you know, that, like I said, it can end before it even begins. So, yeah,
and just
competitively, it definitely lights a fire under me, but go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just so people understand, because, you know, listening to you talk, the logical question would be, well, isn't that USTA's job? I mean, they're the governing body of tennis in the United States. Aren't they charged with taking care of these players as they come on tour and, you know, and make their way? And the answer is, for some players, they take on that responsibility, but not for every player coming out. And I think what you're talking about is filling in the gap there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, filling in the gap, and it just, I mean, kind of creating an inclusive environment. I mean, for me, like, you know, the USGA has definitely offered up a lot of their, you know, resources for me to use, and I'm very grateful for that. And I really think, you know, Martin Blackman is doing an incredible job. I really like him. He's really, you know, he's focusing on this kind of Team USA, you know, idea, which is getting all the American guys, you know, included and, you know, working together. And that's the big part right there. It's just that community aspect, because, like, for me, you know, I was, you know, number 2 in the country as a junior, number 1 in the country in college. But when I came out of college and was struggling for a bit, there was really no one there to support me. You know, the USTA would say, okay, you know, we got these coaches for you, you can use them. But, you know, the coaches that the USTA has are on salary, and, you know, they're doing their thing. You know, their life doesn't change whether or not you're succeeding, whether or not you're failing. So they just don't have that same kind of, you know, we're there for you kind of, you know, mentality. And, you know, I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, because they're not. It's just a tough, you know, it's a tough place to be because of the nature of tennis. And so that's why, you know, they have their, you know, the USTA focuses purely on tennis. That's how it should be. They're the United States Tennis Association. You know, Tenacity, you know, what we want to do is we want to focus on tennis, but like I said, tennis is a platform for other things. You know, the title sponsor that we're going to have hopefully will, you know, be recruiting, you know, for you know, these people once they're done with on the tour, they'll go straight into good jobs, and that's kind of what we want. You know, we want to promote just all the skills that you can get from tennis, you know, in every part of your life, basically. So, you know, it's just because it's an individual sport, you can feel like there's no one there for you. You can feel like, you know, your tennis life is ending. And, you know, it's really important to have an answer for that and to have a little bit more security and sustainability, which, you know, unfortunately isn't really presented in the current market.
5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Oh, wow. What a question. I'm a Venice guy. I live day by day.
You don't.
I mean,
you're
in a perfect world, you know what? In a perfect world, I'd really like to, you know, spend a few more years on the tour promoting, you know, this Champions Fund and Tenacity as a whole. I really would love to do that. And then, you know, after my playing days are over, I really want to go back to school and, you know, get an MFA and hopefully creative writing or maybe, you know, English literature. I'm not sure exactly, you know, which route I'll take with that, but I definitely would like to get my master's, maybe even look into film school, but I think I would prefer an MFA in writing. So I definitely, you know, I want to play for a few more years at least. I want to go back to school, get a master's degree, and then, you know, I want to stay around the tennis community. I really do. You know, that's if I don't alienate myself from the rest of society and just live on a ranch in Ojai and write poems. But, you know, there's two different ways we can go here.
We've got about 4 minutes left, so this is my last question to you. When you are an old guy and you're looking back on your tennis career, what will make you say it was a success?
I think what'll say it's a success is to really be able to look back on, you know, the matches I've played, the experiences that I've had, and, you know, just pictures, videos, any type of memorabilia that can really just, you know, say, you know, this is me having, you know, fun, doing it my way, and just playing for the enjoyment of playing. And that's kind of how I've always been. You know, I'm not doing it for, you know, to be a big shot tennis player, you know, famous guy. I'm not doing it to be, you know, a multi-millionaire. If I was doing it for either of those things, I would have chosen a more sensible path than tennis. You know, I do it purely because I really enjoy playing the game, and I really enjoy, you know, the feeling of trying to beat someone as bad as they're trying to beat you. You know, that's a cool thing. And, you know, that competitive spirit that's what tennis is all about. And that feeling, you know, that you really get when you're in an intense match and you're doing everything you can to possibly beat the guy, you know, that's the magic of the sport right there. And for me, you know, just to look back at, you know, my career with a fondness for all the things, all the places I went, all the, you know, good times I had on the court, that's a success for me. I mean, let's say I get to number one in the world and, you know, make a ton of money, and, you know, I look back on it and I say, well, I didn't really enjoy it that much, you know, once I got to a certain point, you know, like an Agassi story or something like that, you know, I don't think I would be happy with that as much, you know. I really value just purely the enjoyment of it, and as long as I can look back on it and say, you know, I did it my way, you know, I did it the way that I thought was the best for me. I didn't, you know, get influenced by anyone else in too you know, major of a way. You know, I kept to my own ideals and my own philosophies, and, you know, did it my way and had a lot of fun. As long as I can say that, I'm happy.
Where is your next tournament? Where and when?
So right now I'm fully like immersed in creating this fund, and we're really close to having it completely launched. So I'm hoping that, you know, I played the two futures around here in January just because they were so close, and I was able to kind of, you know, work on, you know, different things while I was, you know, playing those. But as far as traveling, I'm hoping to be kind of fully back on the tour. I'm hoping to kind of sneak into Indian Wells. We'll see about that. We'll see if that ends up happening. So that's kind of, you know, the first tournament that I'm looking at right now as a possibility is Indian Wells. And then after that, I'm hoping to pretty much be back on a full-time schedule in April.
Awesome. Well, wishing you all the best with your tennis and with Tenacity, and we'll be keeping an eye out for you, and I look forward to watching you play if you come down my way, or if we wind up in the same city as I'm traveling around too. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Clay, and I thank you so much for taking time out and getting up early to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And again, you know, I think, I mean, what you're doing with this blog and this radio show is really great for tennis, and every single person that's listening, thank you for being involved in the sport. Thank you for being a fan of the sport. And hopefully, we're all in this together. It's all about, the interest of tennis and, the community of it. So thank you all. And thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. To my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's been a great time chatting with Clay, and we have lots of great shows coming up in the future, so stay tuned. We'll see you next week on Parenting Aces.